Welcome to this week's episode of The Entrepreneurial Artist. I'm Chris Mercer and I'm with my lovely co-host Kat Machin. And today we're talking about avatars and your target market. So do you want to explain, Kat, what an avatar is?
So an avatar is basically the target person that you are talking to in your marketing. Obviously, if you target your market to everybody, in the same way that if you target your art towards everyone, the problem is that you end up not being heard by anyone because it doesn't speak to anyone in particular. So it's about identifying not just like who they are, but like how they feel, what they think, and what their common problems are. And in doing so, you can really connect deeply to that individual. Or obviously, hopefully a group of individuals that then want to go on and purchase your art and, you know, get involved with what you're doing. And I think there's lots of different ways in which like key things that you can need to look at. But in particular, you know, you're looking at age and occupation, and it can even be as deep as habits and values and, you know, things that they enjoy and understanding people at kind of like a granular level. And you mentioned something earlier, Chris, when we were talking offline, which was about creating sort of like a profile of a person. And I love the idea of like, you mentioned even having a picture of them. And I love that.
Yeah, you can build like a persona up of your target market. So you can have, say, if your target market, say, 30-year-old woman, some people actually go, oh, my target market is Margaret, and they create this image of Margaret and who she is. And the benefit of doing that is when you write a post or, you know, a blog or anything, you can go, would Margaret be interested in reading this? So it makes it really relevant.
I like that. I actually do that as well. I have a few personal like close friends that are like within my usual like avatar, I guess. And when I'm actually writing like any emails that I send, I always write their name at the beginning, like physically. Obviously, eventually I take it out because, you know, if your name's Margaret, you don't want to be receiving an email that's like, "Hi, Ben." You're like, this has gone to the wrong person.
And you pass that on to me, and it works really good, doesn't it?
I love it. I like writing emails really personally, and I think it's super important because I think we're in the age where you get lots of junk mail, and it's just so impersonal. You end up thinking, oh well, this isn't really that important to me, whereas it's different if you can really appeal to a person in particular. So I would write it as if I'm writing to almost my best friend who happens to be in the avatar space. And by the time you get to reading it, it feels like it's like, because I think one of the things that a lot of marketing lacks is like that human connection. And I think part of the reason why it lacks human connection is people haven't even understood, you know, their avatar, who they're talking to. Yeah. So the problem is you can't talk to a human without knowing who that human is.
Yeah. And that's where you can build on that persona as well, because you want to know everything about, say, Margaret, we're talking about everything about her. You know, where does she like Netflix? Where does she like shopping? Is she a brand person? Is she a person who doesn't give a damn about brands and things like that? Because you'll speak to that person differently than you'll speak to somebody who likes brands or, you know, likes traveling overseas versus somebody who travels around Australia, doesn't travel at all. You'll speak differently to them. So it really helps you in your copy to nail that. Who is it?
I like that. And I was just thinking, like, you know, last week we did values. And if you haven't heard that episode, go back and have a listen. But like understanding your values, but then also understanding the values of your avatar is really, really important. You know, like some people's values, like family is very, very high value to certain groups. But, you know, and you would include like aspects of that, you know, in your like marketing in some place, you know, like for instance, you know, a lot of people's artwork is about creating these beautiful family homes. Yours is not necessarily, I don't know if your art specifically is family orientated, Chris, but it's certainly like about creating homeliness,
yeah,
and that kind of stuff. Whereas that's like absolutely not what mine's about at all. So, and the people that are in my avatar, like my avatars, aren't that geared towards that aspect of it. They're geared to like different things. So that's kind of like what I like, is that there is no right or wrong answer with avatar, because everybody's avatars are different. There's
Yeah.
no one like, this is the avatar for all artists, because I think that's the one thing, is that you can obviously look at different people, in even within space, like, so I'm a space artist, so even within space artists, I'd say that there are lots of different avatars. I've probably identified five different sections, and whilst I would say that I've got people that like my art for different reasons, predominantly it's like one or two of those avatars, and that's how I can really like not to hyper target people, but just talk to them on their level, because I think everyone wants to be spoken to on their level.
Yeah. So how did you discover who yours were? What did you actually put into place to do that?
Look, I know that this isn't really ideal for a lot of artists, because like a lot of the time I realized that I learned what my avatar was just through like who my followers were and like who I was selling to. And I know that not everyone, a lot of people are starting from like a ground zero where they've got none of that stuff in place yet. So I think, look, until you have like, because I believe in like data, and I think it's really important to build out your avatar based on some actual things that you can see it. But until that point, you can just have a good solid guess. And like, as with all the different things, as with like doing your mission and doing your values and all of those things, like you often start with an idea. You have to have a starting point. So I think don't worry too much about it, because as you grow, it starts to almost like crystallize, because I think like there's a lot of pressure to be like, I have to have the exact right avatar from the beginning, and I can't make it get it wrong.
Yeah, but is that the point of it, Kat? They're like, when we start putting things out there and then we start learning and we get data, that then we can start improving it. So just that kick
100%
to get us going. Yeah.
So I don't know if this is really solid advice, but if you have no idea where to start, I often start with myself as the avatar, because I'm making art for myself, but then I'm extrapolating that out into, so that was kind of like where I started. And then I was focusing on the three F's: friends, family, and anyone foolish enough to be within 5 feet of me. And looking at which of my friends and which of my family were really into the art that I was doing. Because like often if you're starting small, you've got to start by looking at what is available to you. So there are some of my family members that are really into what I was doing, and some of them that really weren't into what I was doing. So I was looking for similarities. Now, of course, sometimes people just want to, support you for being you, and that's a-okay. But you'll find that there'll be some sort of trend in there. And then obviously looking into your followers now, like you don't need hundreds of thousands of followers to work this out. Just like, even if you've only got 100 people that follow you, or even only 50, or even only if it's only 10, you can just like literally ask people about like what, like one of the things that I think is really useful for building understanding of avatars is asking questions. And literally like nothing's stopping you if you obviously having an Instagram and having a Facebook and all of that stuff's free. Twitter's, you can make all those accounts free, and you can ask questions, and questions are amazing. So you can be like, oh guys, do you prefer, it doesn't have to be like, do you prefer chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream? But maybe it could be like trying to understand them as people. So like, which is more important to you, family or adventure? And just seeing, like, just asking question after question. And you can, because I think one of the things we're always doing is like trying to get engagement with our artwork, right? One of the great ways of getting engagement is asking questions. So when you're posting the pictures of what you're doing, ask questions, and in a way to like get to know people. And once you start to put all of those answers together, you start to get a picture. So for me, my common theme with all of my followers most often is that they're all bloody stressed. Oh my gosh, the poor people. That they are a lot of them are professionals, often in like IT or medicine, or or what I would consider like nerdy jobs, like high tech, or like you need a lot of education or something like that to get those jobs, and they're high pressure, high stress environments. Often they like, science. They like to think of themselves as big thinkers. Love that. Enjoy feeling intelligent. They're often sci-fi fans, and they are, as I said, very stressed, and they often like to look at my artwork as a way to de-stress. Now, originally, that's not how I spoke about my artwork, because my artwork to me means something different from a lot of my audience. But I'm just come to peace with the fact that for me, a lot of my artwork is a bit spiritual to me. It's a bit weird because I'm not religious in any way, but I find like looking at the cosmos gives me these moments to, it's like a philosophy, looking out into space and pondering the meaning of the universe. And I like to do that because I get this sort of deeper sense of connection with the world, but people like to do that often because it's de-stressing. It
So
gives
when
them a
you
sense
found
of
out that cast, did you start changing the language that you would use to
100%.
Yeah. And that's what
Because
it's for. This is what we're trying to emphasize. Once you get information, like you can connect the way people are wanting you to, I suppose.
That's right. And I think one of the cool things is that once I did start to change the way that I spoke about my own artwork, things started to take off even more. And I think that's really important. So just being able to adapt. And it doesn't change the necessary meaning of the artwork per se, but it's talk about who is interested, because like some people might look at an artwork and they like it because it relaxes them. But some people might look at the artwork and be like, they like it because it brings them intense joy and color and vibrancy. So and it's just finding those trends. And what you can find a trend within your general follower base, but then obviously once you start to make sales, it is so important to get to know your buyers. Like I think asking questions is so important, because it really gives you this overall insight into who it is that's actually interested in your work. And I think it really allows you to understand, like, obviously not just who they are, but where to find them. I think that's another challenge that a lot of artists have, is like, oh, okay, well, I have all these people but where are they? Like, I know who it is. Where am I finding them?
Yeah. And when you're starting off as well, like you might be selling to friends, family, and people through your own network. And then that way is so easy to give a questionnaire to them, because they're extremely open to helping you get where you want to go. So, that's an easy one. You can find out all sorts of information from them there. Yeah.
For sure. And I think it's important, because I think one of the things people are worried about when it comes to marketing is being okay with not being for everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we've got a lot of this.
Anything, are we?
Right. Yeah, but you think, oh, well, if I cut my market down, if I'm only talking to this specific group, what about this group and this group and this group and this group? Yeah. Like, it's okay. Like, if people really like your artwork and they are, they're in slightly different avatar, it's not going to stop them from purchasing it. But what it will do is it will make you really, really, really hyper appeal to people that are in your target audience and your target market. And it will have this doubling effect, because it's just a better way to communicate, I think, in general, is just having someone to actually talk to. Because it's weird, isn't it? You get there and you're in front of your camera and you're not looking at a person, you're looking at your screen. Yeah. So in your mind, you have to really realize who you're actually talking to on the other side. Like, it's different if it's like me and you and we're having a conversation and we're talking face to face. You guess what, can pick up all the social cues and you understand how to appeal to someone, or like how to communicate your important stuff to them.
You go all weird, don't you? I do. You start writing things and typing things, and sometimes it just comes out like you're not talking to a human being because you've tried to be a little bit proper. I know you're okay with that, but you know, you're over that. But like, it's weird because I've seen some of these adverts a few days ago. A few of us are going through a marketing course, and then the guys who were teaching us would put the adverts up, and you just think, when they're explained and broken down, it was just crazy what people were doing. First of all, too much information. You're trying to kill 10 birds with one stone. And I suppose we do that with copy as well. When we're speaking to our avatars, we're trying to get 10 different avatars with one piece of copy. So we've just created confusion. We haven't,
right,
you know, clearly and, you know, just spoken to who we're picking up as our avatar. We're trying to get everybody again. So it's just that, as you say, you're speaking to a person. Have that,
you know, I think it's good that you say like the confused, because the confused, I don't know who said this, but the confused consumer never buys. Because if you're sitting there with questions, like even if you think about any time that you've ever gone to purchase something, if there's been any confusion, you've not gone for it. Like, no way.
especially online, because it's all a little bit, you know, is it okay, is it real? And then you get somewhere and then you just think, oh, this is just all too complicated or too confusion. I can't, it's not plain. Like friction points, if you have any friction points in there, it's just too easy to bounce. And you know,
100%. Like, yeah. And I mean, I think also like, yeah, just I really want that bit of like trying to appeal to many people at once, because yeah, even if I'm like thinking about it, like if I'm trying to buy, I like actually have going into like writing with like just a singular focus, like there's lots of aspects to my target market, you know, my avatar, but the one that actually is the most important to them is their intense level of stress. And I think one of the things is not just knowing your avatar as a person, but understanding their problems, like, you know, and being able to speak to those and talking about how your artwork helps alleviate that. Now, and I understand like a lot of people struggle to like, and I did for the longest time, struggle with like, well, what is the point of artwork? You know, you're not going to die if you don't have it.
Yeah.
But it's like a life without color and richness and tapestry. Is like, you know, it's like, yeah, you could live without the bottle of wine, but having it might make it might make it quite nice. Who knows? You know, or the same thing, like, you know, you could live without any sweets and chocolates and cakes for the whole of your life. You can never have them. They can never exist in the whole world. But life is kind of a little nice with them, obviously in moderation, of course. But it's like, it kind of gives like, because if you think about like, imagine the whole world without art.
Because
Like, it would be the blandest,
haven't we? Because trying to find a problem that we solve has been a like, what, you know, what is it? But even a blank wall is a problem. You know, it's took me a long time to sort of accept that, but it's the thing that you're talking about there. It's nice to have. Blank walls are fine, they're not going to kill anyone, but isn't it beautiful when you have visitors walk into your house, you walk into your house and it's, you know, it's exactly how you'd love it to be. You're proud of it, and it's, you know, we know what it's like, don't we? It's lovely to have that feeling,
that sense of being welcomed into a space, and feeling safe and happy in like, you know, like when I was, because I like, obviously when you were selling, like I'm not selling a painting, we're selling something different. Like for me, I'm just selling like this experience to connect to the universe and to feel just this intense relaxation. For you, you know, like when I was a cleaner, I used to clean houses for a living, for a very small period of time in my life, which is that's a whole nother podcast in itself, the lessons I learned from that. But I didn't sell cleaning houses. You know, I was selling being proud, like having pride in your home, and seeing people come home and just to their house and it's like perfect and it's just all nice and laid out, and they just feel like, you know, when you've had a shower, gone out the bath or had a fresh shower, and you get into bed and it's clean sheets and they smell amazing, and you're like, Oh, it's like that feeling. I don't know how you put words on
Yeah.
that.
Everyone knows that feeling though.
Right. So, and I think understanding that there's a need for that, like a need for creating safe and warm and inviting places for people to be.
Yeah.
Or in my case, moments for people to check into the universe and check out of stress, I would say.
Nice.
Oh, I'm going to write that one down.
Yeah. We've got the recording, you're fine.
Yeah.
The other
Rewind that.
the other thing is that there can be like many avatars to your business. So even mine, like I've got original paintings, but prints would be a different avatar because it's a different price point as well. So that's okay. And it's like when I'm targeting my prints, then I'll do a different kind of marketing for the prints. Or if I'm doing products, there'll be a different market again. So you can have quite a few avatars, but just treat them differently each time.
Yeah. And I love that. That makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't mean that you can't have multiple avatars, right? It's just that in that one piece of correspondence, be it a video, be it a DM, be it an email or whatever it is, you're just talking to one at that one time. But then you might have another ad or another piece of email that goes out to a different group, and you're right. And it's funny because like also my different platforms have different avatars. So the person that I speak to when we speak to on Twitter, like predominantly my Twitter is academics. My TikToks are often like young people, like a lot younger. My Instagram people are different. My Facebook people are slightly different. Instagram and Facebook are very similar. And it's been able to talk to people on their level wherever they're at. And as you say, like, the way that you would talk to someone that for me, this buying a $5 digital bundle is actually a little different from the average person that is buying the $20,000 painting, because the $20,000 painting for me is often someone that is like a medical professional, and the person that's buying the $5 bundle might not even be, they might well be a medical professional, but they might not be in the US or Australia. They might be in India or in Brazil, or they might be someone that is, maybe it's like I've got like a lot of students and that kind of stuff. And they, so their financial means, but also their place in life is slightly different as well. So depending on who,
sense, doesn't it? That you're talking now of you never speak to those people the same way. You never communicate. And also, you get insights on your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You've got insights everywhere. So if you're starting out and you've got those accounts, but you haven't had sales, that's fine. You can go to those insights, see how many male, how many female, and you get a feel for kicking off your avatar around using insights like that.
100%. And if you don't have insights, you can often look at other people's accounts and get some. I know there are some different, I don't know if they're free though, there are different apps and utilities where you can look at demographics of other people's account. Like maybe there's another group or artist or something that's similar to you that you can look at for insight into something else before you manage to even build your own up. So that's a great piece of advice. Love that one, Chris. So what are your top 3 things for avatars?
Well, you've just touched on one of them, but that's number 2. So the first one would be, we'd do a questionnaire. So if you've got any sales, any fans, do a questionnaire straight off. Ask them what they like, where they shop, what they do. And just find out who they are, find out more about them as much as you can. Second one would be see who's the leader in your industry, see who's your competitor, see who's the leader in your industry, and find out what they're doing. And number 3 is just really an extension of that, a competition analysis. So you can go in and see what kind of content they're doing, what they get the most engagement, the most leads on. And then at Facebook, you can go into transparency and see how many ads they're running. So you can really, if you don't have the information, go onto somebody else's and just see what's working for them. You know, if they're in this, if they do the same kind of art as you, that sounds pretty good. See the way they're talking to their customers.
Yeah.
See
And
other
I think that,
people's stuff, Kat.
yeah, well, look, that's great. And I think that doesn't have to be the end point, but if you're new to like developing an avatar, that's the best place to start. And then you can refine it over time once you've got more data for your own stuff. Those are three great points, Chris. I love those. My top three are number one, to look at your past sales. It's interesting because we write these top threes in total isolation, but they're also similar. So my number one is you can look at past sales to understand your avatar, and it's just important. And also consider, as you mentioned, bracketing those sales. So look at you don't necessarily need to look at them across the whole board, but look at the $5 sales, and look at the $100 sales, and look at the $1,000 sales, and see if there are anything specific that's a trend between that group. Number two is that avatar isn't just a demographic. It's often a common problem or a common interest. So a common problem might be that, people are feeling very stressed in my case, and they want to have time to de-stress, and that's really important to not just understand who they are, but like how they think, what they're feeling, and those kind of things. And number three, I've got be okay with not appealing to everyone. Because when you talk to everyone, you're talking to no one. So be okay with just talking to specific people. It's okay not to appeal to everyone. There are people out there that aren't your people, and that's okay. And I know that sometimes we want everyone to love us. Do you know what I mean? But that's okay. It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
So anything you wanted to add before we close?
We touched on it before, I think you did, that, and I know it is in our cases. I'm not sure if it's on everybody's avatar, but we are our own avatars, aren't we? I know you are, because that's your passion. And I know I am as well. So for a starting point for me, is easy to go, well, what do I like? What would I listen to? What do I stop and scroll at? So I feel like that's a really big one. If you feel like you are your own avatar, give yourself your questionnaire and see what makes you stop and read, and where do you look at your information?
I like that. That's a really good point. So anyway, thanks to everybody that's listening. I would love to know what your avatar is. Make sure you write in the comments. We do read them all. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, pop that in the comments too. Don't forget to follow us on all the different social medias. We'll put the links in the description. Next week, we are talking about planning and getting it done. Because what's the saying? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we're getting it done next. All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.